Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unify China, is a name that echoes through the corridors of history with a resonance both majestic and menacing. Born Yingzheng in 259 BCE, he was thrust onto the throne of the Qin state at the tender age of 13, a boy king in a land fractured by warring factions. By 221 BCE, after years of ruthless conquest and shrewd diplomacy, he had vanquished the rival states, Zhao, Wei, Han, Chu, Yan, and Qi, forging an empire that would lay the foundation for China as we know it. His reign was a paradox of brilliance and brutality. He constructed the Great Wall to shield his realm from northern barbarians, standardized weights, measures, and script to bind his disparate subjects, and built roads that stretched like arteries across the land. Yet his hands were stained with blood. He ordered the burning of books to erase dissenting philosophies, buried Confucian scholars alive to silence their protests, and pursued immortality with a fervor that teetered on the edge of madness. In 210 BCE, while touring his eastern territories in search of elixirs to prolong his life, he died. Some say poisoned by the very mercury concoctions he consumed in his desperate bid to defy death. His body was returned to Shanxi province, near modern-day Xi'an, where a tomb awaited, a necropolis so vast, so sinister, that it remains one of history's most enduring mysteries. The records of the grand historian, penned by Sima Qian around 100 BCE, offers a tantalizing glimpse into this burial site, though its author wrote a century after Qin's death, piecing together court records and fading oral traditions. Sima Qian describes a subterranean palace of breathtaking ambition, its ceiling adorned with pearls arranged to mimic the constellations, its floor sculpted with rivers and seas of flowing mercury to mirror China's waterways. Mechanical crossbows, rigged with bronze-tipped arrows to fire at intruders, stood as silent sentinels, while chambers overflowed with treasures, gold ingots, jade carvings, and bronze statues, sealed from the world. But beneath this opulence lay a grim reality. Qin Shi Huang ordered the sacrifice of thousands to accompany him into the afterlife. Concubines who bore him no heirs were dragged into pits, their screams reverberating as earth cascaded over them, their silk robes tangling in the dirt as they clawed at their fates. Craftsmen who engineered the tomb's deadly traps, spiked pits that impaled, floors that collapsed underfoot, and hidden blades that slashed, were entombed alive, their ingenuity rewarded with eternal silence. Soldiers, whether loyal to the end or deemed expendable, were buried in their armor, their final breaths stolen by the suffocating weight of soil. Historians estimate that over 700,000 laborers toiled on this colossal project, many vanishing into its depths, their bones mingling with the earth, their names lost to time. The most chilling legend, however, is the curse Qin Shi Huang is said to have invoked. In his final days, as the mercury elixirs seared his veins and paranoia clouded his mind, he summoned priests, shamans, and alchemists to his bedside. His lips stained with the silvery poison, he rasped a decree that his soul would remain tethered to the tomb, commanding the spirits of the sacrificed to rise against any who dared disturb his eternal rest. This was no idle threat. It was a ritual steeped in blood, mysticism, and desperation, a vow that the anguish of the damned would become a weapon to guard his legacy. Sima Qian hints at this dark ceremony, noting that Qin's advisors trembled at the thought of his wrath enduring beyond death, believing he had harnessed forces from the unseen world. The tomb, they whispered, was not merely a grave, but a prison for souls, a liminal space where the boundary between life and death frayed, where the echoes of the sacrificed lingered in the stone. For over 2,000 years, the tomb faded into the realm of myth, its precise location obscured by the passage of time and the shifting sands of history. That veil was lifted on March 29, 1974, when a group of farmers digging a well near Mount Li in Shanxi struck something solid beneath the soil. What they unearthed was nothing short of staggering. The terracotta army, over 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots, each sculpted with haunting individuality. Some with stern brows furrowed in duty, others with faint enigmatic smiles, standing in silent ranks across 3 massive pits. This discovery, sprawling across 20 square miles, revealed the outer defenses of Qin Shi Huang's burial complex, a testament to his megalomania and his obsession with control, even in death. Yet, despite decades of excavation, the central chamber, where his body is believed to rest, remains untouched, a sealed enigma that taunts archaeologists and historians alike. Why? Science offers a partial explanation. Soil samples reveal mercury levels hundreds of times higher than natural, suggesting Sima Qian's rivers of mercury were not poetic exaggeration, but a literal truth, a toxic moat containing over 100 tons of liquid metal. Experts warn that breaching this chamber could unleash a deadly vapor, poisoning the air for miles. But the people of Shanxi scoff at this rationalization. They call the mercury the blood of the cursed, a supernatural essence distilled from the torment of the sacrificed, seeping into the earth as a warning to the living, a barrier that pulses with the rage of the dead. These beliefs are not mere superstition. They are rooted in centuries of eerie occurrences that defy explanation. In the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 CE, just decades after Qin's death, villagers near Mount Li reported seeing ghostly figures, women draped in tattered silk, their faces gaunt and eyeless, their hands outstretched as if seeking something lost. Gliding through the fields at dusk, their forms dissolving into the mist. These accounts, preserved in local annals, were dismissed as the delusions of a grieving populace, but they refused to fade. By the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, the stories grew more unsettling. Farmers digging irrigation channels unearthed bones that defied nature, skulls stretched unnaturally long, as if pulled by some unseen force, limbs twisted into grotesque shapes, their surfaces etched with faint, unreadable marks that shimmered in the sunlight. Some whispered these were the remains of the sacrificed, warped by the curse into forms no longer human. The Shanxi Chronicles, a Ming-era text from the 15th century, recounts the tale of Hui Yuan, a Buddhist monk who, in 1423, ventured near the tomb seeking spiritual enlightenment. He returned days later, his robes shredded, his mind fractured, babbling about a chorus of the dead that sang from the depths, a cacophony of wails that drove him to madness. He clawed at his ears until they bled, dying a week later in a fit of terror, his final words a desperate plea for silence. The modern era has only deepened the tomb's dark mystique. In 1980, a clandestine expedition, unsanctioned by the Chinese government, set out to pierce the tomb's uncharted heart, driven by whispers of gold-laden vaults and a hunger for discovery that bordered on recklessness. The group of 5 included 3 archaeologists, Wang Ming, Liu Hao, and Chen Li, a local guide named Zhang Wei, and a journalist, Li Yong. They ignored the pleas of villagers who thrust talismans into their hands, warning of evil qi, malevolent energy, trapped within the tomb's walls. Equipped with flickering flashlights, cameras, and crude maps, pieced together from rumors and half-forgotten tales, they descended into a tunnel beyond the official excavation zones. What they encountered, as Li Yong later recounted in a voice trembling with dread, was a descent into a nightmare that devoured them one by one. The tunnel was a suffocating abyss, its air thick with a metallic stench that clawed at their throats, a bitter tang that lingered on their tongues. The walls, slick with moisture, shimmered like the hide of some slumbering beast, their surfaces etched with faint carvings, scenes of sacrifice, figures writhing in agony as earth consumed them, their mouths frozen in silent screams. Within minutes, whispers slithered through the dark, soft at first, like wind rustling through reeds, then sharper, more insistent. Wails of despair, pleas choked by sobs, screams severed as if throttled by unseen hands. Zhang Wei, a wiry man in his 50s, who'd grown up on the tomb's legends, dropped to his knees, clutching a jade amulet that dangled from his neck. "The concubines," he stammered, his eyes wide with terror. "They're still here, trapped in the stone, begging for release from graves that crushed their bones." His words hung heavy, a shroud of dread that wrapped around them. But the group pressed on, their footsteps swallowed by the oppressive silence that seemed to pulse with malice. Hours bled into an eternity as they navigated a labyrinth of passages, each turn revealing more of the tomb's grim artistry. Walls bore reliefs of soldiers impaled by traps, their clay faces twisted in eternal torment, their hands clutching at wounds that would never heal. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the tomb itself were breathing, exhaling the weight of centuries. At last, they reached a colossal stone door, its surface carved with symbols that writhed under their torchlight. Glyphs older than any known script, as if scrawled by hands from a forgotten age, their curves and angles pulsing with an unnatural energy. As Wang Ming traced the carvings with trembling fingers, a frigid gust roared through the tunnel, extinguishing their lights in an instant. In the pitch blackness, Li Yong heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, like an army on the march, their rhythm echoing off the walls. Wang Ming screamed, a blood-curdling sound that cut through the silence, thrashing as if gripped by icy fingers that tightened around his throat. When the lights flickered back, he was gone, his flashlight rolling across the floor, its beam illuminating a trail of blood that snaked into the shadows and vanished. Panic seized them, a primal terror that clawed at their minds, and they turned to flee, but the tunnel had transformed. It stretched endlessly before them, the walls narrowing like the jaws of a trap, their surfaces slick with a sheen that glistened like sweat. The terracotta statues they'd passed, stoic guardians of clay, now seemed alive, their hollow eyes gleaming with a faint malevolent light, tracking every frantic step with an eerie precision. Their heads tilted with a creak of ancient joints, a sound that reverberated through the tunnel like the groan of the earth itself. Zhang Wei whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of their hearts, that these were Qin Shi Huang's eternal sentinels, awakened by the curse to defend their master's resting place. Before anyone could respond, a guttural roar shook the passage, a sound that seemed to rise from the depths of the tomb itself. Zhang was yanked into the dark, his scream ending in a wet, sickening crunch as blood sprayed the walls, pooling in cracks like veins, its coppery scent mingling with the damp, stale air. The remaining four ran, their sanity fraying like threadbare cloth, their breaths ragged in the suffocating gloom. Liu Hao stumbled, his foot catching on an unseen ridge. And the darkness claimed him, swallowing his cries as they echoed long after he vanished. Chen Li clung to Li Yong, her sobs a desperate plea as she gripped his arm, her nails digging into his flesh. But the unseen hands were stronger, tearing her away with a force that left bloody gouges in his skin, her screams fading into the void. Li Yong alone staggered out, collapsing under the Shanxi sky, his clothes shredded, his mind shattered into fragments. Rescuers found him raving incoherently about clay eyes that see and a river of blood beneath the earth, his voice a broken whisper that carried the weight of what he'd witnessed. His journal, scribbled in a trembling hand before his death in a Xi'an asylum in 1981, painted a vivid nightmare that chilled those who read it. He claimed the tomb was a portal, a rift to a realm where Qin's victims festered, their souls bound by his will, their eyeless faces looming in his dreams, their mouths gaping in silent screams, their hands clawing at his soul with an insatiable hunger. The curse's echoes ripple through time, a haunting refrain that refuses to fade. Since the 1970s, locals have reported sightings of concubines in white drifting across the fields near Mount Li, their robes trailing mist that chills the air, their forms dissolving as dawn breaks. Children wake screaming in the night, their small hands clutching at blankets as they recount nightmares of clay hands dragging them into the earth. In 1998, a team of geologists testing the site fled in terror after their equipment malfunctioned, capturing distorted wails, inhuman voices pleading from the soil that defied all rational explanation. Today, the tomb's heart remains sealed, its secrets guarded by a river of mercury and something far older, far more sinister. Scientists hesitate, citing the dangers of poison and the logistical nightmare of excavation, but the people of Shanxi whisper a different truth. Beneath Mount Li lies a legion of the damned, their eyes hollow, their hands outstretched, waiting with patient malice to claim any who dare trespass. Qin Shi Huang sought eternity, and perhaps he found it, not in the life he craved, but in the torment he wove into the earth, a curse that still hungers, 2,000 years after his death. Do you dare believe that its appetite remains unsated? That its shadows still reach for the living?